Today is January 17th, 2020. Feels funny to say that. And my name is Nancy Alexander. I am the director of the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society and Museum, and I am speaking with Mr. Hurley Waples. Mr. Waples, would you please spell your name for me, please?
Hurley Jr.
And your date of birth?
4/12/39.
Mr. Waples, you just told me that you've lived your whole life in the Rehoboth Beach area. What are your earliest memories of living in Rehoboth?
Well, growing up in Rehoboth Beach, everybody knew everybody in Rehoboth, and you know, your neighbors would look at her after you, you know. And it was a good place to live, and still is.
What did you do? Do you remember your life before you went to school or did any formal education?
Well, I always worked with my father. He was a sharecropper at that time, and he did a lot of farming on the Dodd property where the outlets are today. And I've got a footprint in every square inch of that farm land out there. So.
What was your father's name, full name?
Hurley R. Waples Sr.
And your mother's name?
Annie Mae Waples, short Waples.
May, M-A-E?
M-A-E.
Short, S-H-O-R-T?
Yes, Waples, yes.
Okay. Did your father, was he born and raised in Rehoboth?
Yes. Yes.
Was he born at home, maybe?
Yes, back there in them days, yeah. Most everybody was born at home.
And where did he live? Where did his family live?
Well, we originally lived right on the canal bank, right directly behind the museum.
On the museum side or on the other side?
On this side of
This side.
Mm-hmm.
Does that house still stand by any chance?
No, that house was moved from there back to here where my brother used to live, and it burnt down. And this property here was given to my father. That property on just behind the museum was a government property, and they would lease it to families for $1 for their lifetime. And it was 10 families that lived on that, behind on that road. There was a road that went back.
Do you remember any other family names?
Oh yes, it was the Perrys, May Perry.
P-E-R-R-Y?
Yes.
May, M-A-E again?
M-A-E.
Okay.
Jack Loper. Jim Lynch. He was the brother to Flem Lynch that owned the liquor store in Doris.
Okay.
Then you had the Moore family. And then you had George Frame. And then there was Clarence Murray.
Were they all African-American families?
No.
Oh, a mix of...
They were mixed. And
Okay.
all the way to the very end was a lady by the name of Miss Jenny Jones.
So he was born in that house and grew up there. And...
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My father was born over what they call West Rehoboth. That's where his parents were born.
And what house did you grow up in?
I grew up in the house that was moved from there up to here.
Okay. Moved from the canal bank.
From the canal bank to this property.
When you say this property, you mean
This was the property that was given to my father.
this house that we're sitting in right now?
No,
Oh, I'm
no,
sorry.
no. The house that we moved it was on this side. It burnt down. We had it. Yes.
And so we'll go back. What were your earliest memories?
Oh, my earliest memories of childhood in Rehoboth, as they say, when they dredged the canal, they pumped all that sand behind where we lived, and it was nice hills. When it snowed, I mean, every kid in Rehoboth, that's where they came, and we would ride our sleds down that hill.
Nice.
Of course, backyard then was our Cowboys and Indians. That's where we did all of our playing up on the sand hill.
I think back then children found ways to play outside all day.
Exactly, yes.
Any recollection of your playmates' names?
Well, in that same area that we lived was a boy there by the name of Jackie Moore. And he and I were, we were just like two peas in a pod. Yeah, we were in trouble all the time as youngsters.
I've heard it said that sometimes if you got in trouble in Rehoboth before you even made it home, your parents knew that you
Exactly.
had done something wrong.
Yes.
So you and Jack Moore palled around.
Yes.
And then you got a little older. What was the next step for you?
Well, my next step was as I got a little older and had a dad on the farm, and when farming got too bad, I had a little job working with the Marsh family, taking care of racehorses.
And whereabouts was that?
They had a stable right in front of where the bike shop is. The guy that sells scooters in the road. That's before you get to the bridge.
So where All Wheels Bike Shop is?
No,
now?
not All Wheels. It's a different company. Right here at before you cross the bridge. It's on this side of the canal.
Okay.
Yeah. I used to be a gas station, Sunoco gas station, when I was coming up as a youngster.
So you helped out with the horses?
Yeah, race horses, and then when I got a little older, I started traveling with them. I was all up in New England, up in Canada, in Maryland. Charlie Marsh, I worked for the Marshes.
And the horses were for what purpose?
Race horses.
Oh, they were race horses. Okay.
Sulky.
Did you ride? You rode the?
Yeah, well, I did a lot of training horses. I helped guys. As a matter of fact, Billy Joseph, that owns the Joseph Cottages in Rehoboth, I helped him. I broke a horse for him. It turned out to be a real good horse.
I have been told that there was a time when several people had horses and rode them around Rehoboth. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, Hurricane Daniel on Hennepin Avenue, right there at the graveyard. He used to rent horses and there was a bridle trail down through the Hennepin Acres. And as a youngster, he and my father were real good friends. And he would come and get me, and I would take the horses. We would take them out on Thompson Isle and let them graze out there for about a month before the summer season started. And then we'd go get them and bring them back, and he would run them out to people during the summer for saddle riding.
I don't know that anybody knows all this. So you let them graze out on Thompson Island. Must have been before it's parkland.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
Yes.
And how long did you do that? From what age to what age?
Oh, I must have been about 7 or 8 years old back there then. Yeah.
You must know a lot about horses.
Yeah, I do. I still love horses. As a matter of fact, every once in a while I go out to the guys, and these guys are so happy, and we go out and we talk about the good old times.
And how old were you when you stopped doing that?
I was about 21, 22-year-old. I got married, and I just stopped traveling. I figured a place for me would be with my family. But I did stay on the farm, and I trained horses for them, and I broke colts. And when I got them ready to go, I would send them up to Charlie Marsh. He lived right here, right down the street from here.
Wow. I didn't know that was so commonplace here.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What else do you remember about just daily life, about grocery stores or church or anything else?
Well, the grocery store where Butch McQuaid, I think it's called the Eggs now, that used to be owned by the Joseph family. As a matter of fact, my father cleared them lots in there for the cabins and for that store.
And I heard that you got a lot of things at that store, sometimes maybe even things you weren't supposed to get during World War II?
Yeah.
You know anything about that?
Well, the story is that McQuay had a broom sitting there, and everybody that bought anything in that store, they paid for that broom.
I have heard that. I also heard that even during World War II, when there were restrictions, sometimes Butch could get you some things that other people couldn't.
Good, yeah, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay. What about church life?
Well, I've always belonged to this church right down here. And my grandfather was one of the founders of this church.
And what was his name?
His name was, that's something, can't think of my grandfather's name.
That's all right. It'll come to you.
Yeah.
If I hadn't asked, you would have remembered. Don't worry. That's an everyday occurrence for me.
Yeah.
So
Edgar. He was a slave. He worked on the Holland farm when he first come to Delaware. They came out of Maryland.
So he was a slave for the Holland family.
No, not for the Holland.
I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay.
When he was able to be free, he came to Delaware and he worked on the Holland farm.
Okay. So a little bit more about church, though. This church is currently called Faith United Methodist.
Yes. It has had three names. One name was Burton's Chapel, then it was United Methodist Church, and now it's Faith United Methodist Church.
When you went to church, were there prominent church families, Waples, other names that you can remember?
Oh, yes, the Waples, the Burtons, the Millers.
And what did you do? Did they have activities for young people at the church?
Oh yeah. We would go on like summer trips, they take us places and.
Where'd you go?
Well, we would go to years ago. We would always go to the beach down to the bay. We go down past Country Club Road, and back at it, you can take it right to the water back there. Skids. You got to be playing in the water.
You can make a whole day of just playing in the water.
Yes.
Did you do any crabbing in the canal? Any?
Yeah, I used to crab down in the canal, and my uncle used to come. But us kids, by living right on the canal bank, that was one thing we didn't do. We weren't allowed to go down in the water, down next to the water.
Were your parents afraid?
Well, none of us could swim, really.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
And I'll never forget that canal bank, because one of the worst whippings I ever got was my mother had bought me a suit. And my good friend of mine lived right on this corner up here. He told us he could swim. So and then we got to talk, and I asked him, well, go ahead and swim. He said, I don't have a swimming trunks. So I go in the house and get my brand new suit pants and cut the legs out of them and give them to him, and come to find out they wouldn't fit him, and come to find out he couldn't swim. So that's the price I had to pay.
I think everybody's done something like that when they were kids.
And also, in that canal, I'll never forget, sometimes I ride across the bridge and I get angry, because that canal has caused me two whippings. I took my grandfather just bought me a bike, and I took the back wheel off, and I took it apart, and when I turned it over, everything fell out, the bearings and all the little things inside, and I got mad and I threw my wheel in the canal. And it's still there. It's been there about 74 or 5 years. It's still in the bottom of that canal. So.
Oh my goodness! Oh, so every time you ride over that canal, you can see that
think
path.
about it. Yes.
What about school?
Well, I went to what is called the daycare center now. Our fellowship hall was sitting right up here, right down the street. I was still on Church Street, and until the 6th grade. Then from the 6th grade on, we went to Lewis High School, And then from there, we went to WMC Jason.
So 6 to what was Lewis High School? 6 through.
Lewis High School was from 6th grade. I think they went to the 9th. I believe.
To 9th, and then.
I'm not sure on that. And then from there to WMC Jason.
Was that in Georgetown?
Yes.
How did you get there?
We were bused from there. A guy by the name of Harry C. Burton had school buses, and he would bus us there.
Was he African American?
Yes.
And where did the bus pick you up?
The bus, he come right here on this corner here.
Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm trying to piece all this together. I don't think people understand that there wasn't a local high school that you could walk to, so you had to get on the bus and go.
Well, even Lewis, see, for us from Rehoboth, we had a bus to pick us up.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you did have a bus to Lewis. Okay. Okay. The building that's now next to All Wheels on Route 1 was where the YMCA was.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then that got moved to Route 1, and then another school was built.
Yeah, where the YMCA is now.
Is right now. And what school was that?
Rehoboth Elementary, part
Right.
of it. Kindergarten and first grade were in that building.
Kindergarten and first. So you went to school in the building that's now on Route 1 next to All Wheels.
Yes.
How many rooms were there?
It's a two school room, but at the time they only used one room. And later, through the years, they started using the other room.
Why did they only use one room?
Well, there really wasn't that many kids.
And I'm assuming it was like a one-room schoolhouse with many ages?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Teacher's name?
Mrs. Fountain.
Fountain?
Fountain, yes.
Was she a local?
No, she lived in Milford.
Group activities or teams or anything?
None of that, I can't recall now. Wayne can tell you all, she can fill you in on that, yeah.
Okay.
But
okay.
one time we put on a show, it was a circus, and that thing went over well. And she can tell you all about that. Yeah, she can tell you all about that. I mean, we carried it to different schools.
What part were you in the circus?
You won't believe this, Frankenstein.
Yeah. Now that's a circus I want to see. There was Frankenstein in the circus.
Yeah.
What else do you remember about the circus?
Oh, I don't know what to say about that.
That's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
But we did have a circus that used to come here every year.
And where was that? Where was the circus?
Right where the old suburban propane used to be. And that was right on Rehoboth Avenue before you get to the bridge.
I believe it is a townhouse complex now.
Townhouse complex right now.
What years about? How about how old were you?
I was about maybe 6 or 7 year old.
How many years did it come?
I can remember it coming back 2 or 3 years.
And there were the usual games and rides?
Yes, yes. The elephants and all that. They would take the elephants across the bridge and take them right down alongside of the old ice plant and take them down in the water.
The elephants went down the canal bank?
Yes, that was years ago. There was a slope there that
I can't imagine driving over the canal bridge and looking over and seeing elephants drinking out of the canal. Any other animals?
Oh yeah, they had everything. They had the horses, they had the monkeys, they had the lions. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Did they ever go into town, any farther into town?
No. They pitched a big tent there, and they had the crampedleys and all that, yeah.
Wow. So what kinds of things did you do when you got a little bit older? I know that back in those days, young men fished, crabbed, hunted, did different things.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of rabbit hunting, squirrel hunting, and stuff like that. Had rabbit dogs.
Rabbit dogs?
Yeah. Dogs that run rabbits, yeah.
Was that a particular breed?
Yeah, beagles.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Some people do beagling and hunt. Is it fox? I think.
Well,
Or something.
Yeah, well, they're coonhound. He's a little bit bigger than a beagle.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
for running coons and foxes. And like my grandfather used to do a lot of coon hunting. And when I would go with him, my job was to stand out in the road with a lantern. Because when the dogs start running the coon, he lies to wind up anywhere. You don't know where he's going to wind up.
Okay. Okay.
So my job was to stand in the road with the lantern and holler and swing the lantern so they could find their way out of the woods.
The dogs could.
No,
The
the
raccoon.
people.
Oh, the people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean,
okay.
at nighttime, you in the woods, you get lost.
You do get lost.
So somebody's got to be out in the road hollering and, you know.
So you were like a beacon in the night.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. What I've read of coon hunting, everybody kind of goes off by themselves.
Yeah.
But there is a base camp kind of thing, and they make it back to that. Okay. Did he sell the coonskins?
No, that was for food.
That was for food. Okay. What other like local foods did you eat?
Oh, rabbits, squirrels, coons, muskrats.
Did your mom know how to make muskrat?
Oh my, yes, she could cook. Yes, that's one thing she could do. It was 6 of us in our family, 6 kids, and my mother and father. It was 8, so it was 8 of us, and that's the way we survived, by going out in the woods and hunting. And I was telling my kids not too long ago how my father, right there at his telephone pole, we had like a tater hole. You put potatoes in the hole, you put cabbage on the ground, apples, turnips, and you bury them. And when you need them, you just go out and pull out what you needed.
The ground kept it cold. Where did you get your produce from? Apples and things like that.
We growed it all. We growed it. My father, we had apple trees, pear trees. And somebody in the neighborhood would have a type of tree. Peach trees.
And where were your trees?
Well, we had a peach tree over here, along with a grape harbor. And we had my pear tree is still there, but it's getting kind of in bad shape. And I can say, and right back here we had a big garden. I mean, people had big gardens in those days.
What was your favorite meal that your mom cooked?
I would say it had to be chicken and dumplings.
Now, if you didn't grow it, where would you buy it?
Well, we could get McQuay's. Then we had a B&E market right across the street here.
B&E?
B&E market. And there was another store right alongside it. 2 stores right there together. Then they had Carl Joseph on this side of the street.
Let's talk a little bit about West Rehoboth, even though that wasn't exactly your family's land. I have heard several times about places like the Bloody Bucket and the Dewdrop Inn.
Dewdrop Inn was in West Rehoboth.
Okay.
Right up the street from here, where what it's called Burton Village right now.
Mm-hmm.
There was a place in there called Wayside Inn, in front of the YMCA.
Right across from the YMCA. And what was the Wayside Inn?
It was a tavern.
Who ran it?
Johnny Allen. He also had a rental property. One place he had was called an Elephant Hotel.
Elephant Hotel. Where was that?
That was right alongside of the tavern right there. It's in front of the YMCA.
Okay. And do you remember the Dewdrop Inn?
Yes.
Okay. And that was also a tavern?
Yes. Oscar Harmon, he owned that. He also had rental property.
I just got a large amount of correspondence from and to Mr. and Mrs. Malloy, who owned
Right up the street here.
Malloy Cabins.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be reading through that material, and if I have questions, I might have to ask you some questions.
Well, when I got married, first place we stayed was in one of their cabins in West Rehoboth.
And the Malloy cabins then became a more of a hotel, a motel hotel, a little bit later.
Yeah, they got later, yeah, because the motel is on Rehoboth Avenue, and the other place was in West Rehoboth.
I was given to understand that the cabins were all pushed together, and that was sort of the first floor of the motel, and then a second floor was put on top of it.
That happened on Rehoboth Avenue.
Okay.
And the ones in West Rehoboth, he had a small house, and then he had 3 cabins.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's get back to you, because I know that you probably, when you went off to Lewis High School, anything you remember from Lewis High School? Any shenanigans or?
Well, when I was coming, I wasn't big enough for really playing sports.
Okay.
I don't know what happened after I got married and got a little older. I just blowed up.
Oh, you and me both.
Yeah. Yeah. When I went to Jason, those guys over there from around Seaford and Lauren over that way, they were so much bigger than I was.
Okay.
And my mother just didn't want me to play sports. But I used to play baseball. I loved playing baseball. And we had a team here in Rehoboth. And we'd go all down to Virginia and Maryland. Each little town had a ball team. Milford, Lewis, Milton, everybody, Slaughterneck, and then we would start on Easter Monday. We always had a ball game to go somewhere.
And what was your team name?
We were called Rehoboth Clowns at one time.
The Clowns?
Yeah, we were. I mean, we were just in it for the fun, We didn't care whether we won or lost, as long as we were playing ball. I used to pitch and play first base. Now, my father, he had a chance to go with National Black League, but he wouldn't do it. He was a good pitcher. He really could pitch a ball.
My guess is that you probably had an after-school job
Yes.
and had to get home and get your homework done and get to work.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about your after-school job.
Well, my after-school job was one thing. When you got home, the first thing you did, you changed your clothes. You got out, you got your wood and your water in for the evening. And then you come in and do your homework or whatever you had. And after that, 8:30, 9 o'clock, you were in bed.
And on weekends?
Well, Saturday, you pretty well, like I say, we'd be out playing ball or practicing for baseball. But on Sunday, you were in church.
For how long?
Sometime all day.
Tell me a little bit about all-day church.
Well, you go up for the Sunday school, you stayed for morning service, and then if you had an afternoon service, you were there for the afternoon service. And usually you maybe get home by 5:30, 6 o'clock, something like that. And that was your day.
Do you remember the pastors' names over the years?
Yeah, I was just looking at it the other day. We had Reverend Bagwell was the first pastor that I can recall us having in Rehoboth. Then you had Reverend Griffin, Reverend Ballard.
And were you still helping your dad on the farm?
Up until I was about 16, 17 years old was when I started really hitting the road with the racehorses and stuff like that.
Okay.
See, on the farming we did with mules. We didn't have tractors or nothing. We did it with mules and horses. I mean, you get up in the morning, 6 o'clock, and just before the sun starts going down is when you came home. And when you got home and got cleaned up, you didn't want to do nothing else.
And was this mostly during the summers?
Yes. We always plant corn in May, and by the 4th of July, what they call you lay the corn by, and it was done until it started turning brown, And then you had to go out and you had to cut it, and you had to shuck it, and and all that good stuff.
A lot of hard physical labor.
It was.
Kids don't know about that today.
No, they don't.
They
No,
really
they
don't.
don't.
So after you finished with the racehorses and you were married, what'd you do?
Well, when I come home and I finished with racehorses, I decided to do a little carpentry work. I got a job working for Bob Hill. My first carpenter job was with him, and he was a cabinet maker. And I worked for him, oh my goodness, might be 8, 9 years, maybe 10. Those pavilions on the boardwalk, he built them.
Okay.
And he was the type of guy that if you worked for him and with him, if he cut a board, he will make you cut a board. And those pavilions got hip roofs on them. So if he cut one for the right side, he would change the saw up and make you set the saw up so you could cut the left side. And that's how those pavilions were built. I haven't been on the boardwalk. I don't know if they're even still there or not. But he's the one that built them. Right in front of his shop because it didn't have electric on the boardwalk so he could get to do the work. He built them there and we took them down there and set them up.
How'd you get them down there?
He hauled them down on his truck. But they were prefab. He prefabbed them right there at the shop. And then after that, he went to work for Selbyville Manufacturing Company.
Selbyville Manufacturing?
Yes, and I was a cabinet maker there. I got 4 or 5 houses in North Shores and Hillopin Acres that I built cabinets for. And as a matter of fact, I built this house.
It's a beautiful house.
I built this house, and I built a house on Country Club Road for Sonny Johnson. I built one indoors for his brother Edgar Johnson.
So how long did you do carpentry work and cabinetry work?
Well, I'm still doing carpentry work.
What's the last project you worked on?
Henneret's deck. Did you see Henneret's deck on front of her house?
Yes.
I built it.
Wonderful. Okay. That takes a talent that I just don't have. As I said, my father did woodwork and carpentry and measure twice, cut once.
Yeah, now I built my oldest daughter, I built her furniture for her bedrooms, for the kids, their dressers, chest of drawers for them. And people, I get calls just about every day for people, but I can't do it like I used to. I don't see that well. I'm get a little author in my hands. I build birdhouses. Try to set them right out here on the fence during the summer. And sometimes I sell 10, 12 birdhouses a day.
Oh, okay. So you've got a workshop behind here?
Yes, right.
Fantastic. Before I leave, if you're up for it, I would love a tour.
Okay.
That would be great. So you got married. And your wife's name?
Estelle. Yeah.
And Estelle, your maiden name?
Hopkins. We have 2 boys. We had 2 boys and 2 girls. My youngest son passed.
Sorry.
Last March.
Oh heavens. Now they all went to local schools here?
Yes.
Rehoboth Elementary and Rehoboth High School?
Yes.
Okay.
My one daughter, she works out the outlets, and I have another daughter that works for the county. And my oldest boy, he went to Navy, and he retired as chief. Now he cooks for the Navy SEALs.
Heavens. That's an important job.
He lives in Virginia Beach.
Any prominent people that you remember? I know that we've mentioned the reverends at the churches. Anyone in politics or business owners that you remember that had that you mentioned a couple of other business owners. Just anybody else you can think of.
At one time, we had a lot of black business owners. They had their own business, more or less. I mean, you had Miller like Henry Miller. He used to had a business of hauling garbage from restaurants, and he did lawn care, stuff like that. Now my uncle, which was a local pastor of this church, he was the first black man to haul mail from here to Dover for the post office.
And his name?
His name was James E. Waples. Then when he quit doing it, Jack Burton's father, he started hauling, but then they had to take it to Wilmington. Now the mail goes to Wilmington, but you had several people around here had their own little business on the side, you know.
Any women you can think of?
Oh yes, and that's women. They had restaurants, and they had this house right here that my aunt had. She would rent rooms in the summertime
Okay.
for people that would come here and work in town.
And her name?
Irene White.
Okay.
Aunt Cyril Dickerson, she also did that.
Her son was I think the first lifeguard. I want to say Oscar. First African American lifeguard.
The first lifeguard was
Oswald Winchester.
Winchester, and he lived we're in town with on Rehoboth Avenue. A lady called Miss Lena.
He was the first African American.
Yes, and the second one was. God, I can't call his name. I've got it around the tip of my tongue. Can't say it.
It'll come to you.
He's still living too.
Is he around here?
Yeah, not too far from here. He lives right off Route 9, right there at the dairy where they sell ice cream stuff. Hopkins
Near
Dairy.
Hopkins, okay.
Turn and go down that road. He lives right there.
Okay. If you can think of his name, and I'd love to talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be great. There was a taxi stand.
Winston Taxi Cab. Mm-hmm. That was just before you get to on First Street, right on the corner.
I have been told that there were sundown laws that people of color had to be out of town by dark.
Yes. But that was kind of before my time.
Okay.
You know.
Okay. And when you were growing up, I think you said you're not much of a beach person.
No.
Okay. Anything else about the community back here and life and things that you remember?
Well, I remember that West Rehoboth was given to, well, not given, people of color could buy lots back there from a man called Charlie Mills. He wanted people to have a development of their own. And he practically gave those lots to people. I mean, they paid, you know. And I remember when it was nothing but a big field. And then he decided that he wanted to sell it off in lots.
Did you ever meet Mr. Mills?
Oh, yes. Him and his sons, he had two boys. And every once in a while, his son comes back. I think one of them passed. Yeah, they used to ride horses. Him and his boys used to ride horses.
Still talking to Mr. Waples. You did mention that you worked for Suburban Propane.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about Charlie Marsh.
Yeah. Charlie Marsh, I eulogized his body. And at Suburban Propane, I worked there for 22 years, and like I said, I went out with a heart attack. But it was a good time. It was good years. Yeah.
And you mentioned that your mother worked at the ice
My mother,
plant.
she worked at the ice plant. As a matter of fact, she broke 2 fingers working over there. Back then, they had these big containers that they put water in, and they would freeze it. Then they had a machine that would turn that thing upside down and lift ice, and then you took the ice pick and you cut it up in pieces, Yeah.
When you say a container, you mean a very large
A
container.
large container, yeah. I think the blocks that came out was something like 200 pounds. And the machine would turn that thing upside down and slide the ice out, and then you take it. Yeah.
So she used the ice pick. Do you remember how, did she tell you how she broke her finger?
I think of a block of ice or something fell on her fingers. Yeah. But she was a big woman. My mother was a big woman. Yeah.
And how long did she work there?
It wasn't that long.
Okay.
She also worked for the Josephs, Billy Joseph's parents.
And they're the ones who had Joseph's cottages.
Joseph's Cottage, and they used to own the store, Buckway's store.
Okay. All right. What else did your mom do?
Domestic work. She worked for the Lingos, Derek Lingo, Martha Lingo. They lived on Henlopen Avenue, and different places she worked for people.
When you say Derek Lingo, there was an older Derek Lingo. Not,
Yes.
Okay, not the one who passed.
He was related to Jack, the
Okay.
realtor. He related to Jack.
Okay. Any restaurants you remember in town? Were you able to walk in and?
What Avenue restaurant, and then you hit the dinner bell. And that's about the only two I know of.
Okay.
Of course, you had the Blue Hen movie and you had the Avenue movie.
Remember any movies you saw?
Oh, yeah, I'll never forget the first movie I saw was Gone with the Wind. I'll never forget that. Gone with the Wind, the first movie I ever saw. It was at the Avenue restaurant. Our Avenue movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll ask my last question, but if you remember something after that, that's fine. If you had advice to give to younger people, what would the advice be?
Well, the only advice I can give anybody is just love. And love conquers all things. And for some reason, we have forgotten that.
It's very true.
Yeah.
And we're a very small town.
Exactly.
We all have to look out for each other.
Because there's a time, I knew just about everybody that lived in Rehoboth. On both sides of the canal, the Burton family, we knew just about everybody, and we got along. And my father, his business was when he wasn't on the farm, we would kill hogs right here, and they'd kill hogs in a cycle, so that everybody in the neighborhood would have fresh meat all winter long. That sticks in my mind forever. And the same way with vegetables in the garden. Everybody, that wanted it could come and get it. Yeah. Families were always concerned with other families. And that's, anymore you can have a neighbor live right alongside of you and you don't know him.
It's good advice. It's good advice. Well, I thank you so much for your time. You've taught me so much. I've learned so much. I have so much more to learn.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah. And I think it's good to remember how people used to look out for each other.
Yes. Yeah, that's one thing they did.